This large brewery was established in the year 1857 by three brothers, Matthew, John, and Jacob Dick, and was incorporated under the name of the City Brewery. First, the brothers erected a large double 2.5-story house on the corner where Jacob Dick lived. In 1869, the brewery buildings were designed by a St. Louis architect and construction began. Built of brick, stone, and iron, the brewery structures were said to be practically indestructible. Each building, regardless of construction date, contains structural and ornamental references to German architecture common to American brewery design and are tied together by the consistent use of local brick with local limestone trimmings. Because of this, it is seen as an architectural symbol of strength and beauty. At the time of its construction, the buildings were equipped with all the latest and most approved machinery for the brewing of beer, and nothing but the purest of ingredients were used. They had hops imported directly from Bavaria and selected from the finest fields of New York and Washington. This brewery was the largest and best equipped in the state of Illinois outside the city of Chicago, and at one point had a capacity of over 100,000 barrels of beer per annum. As previously mentioned, the Dick Brothers Quincy Brewery was founded in 1857 by Matthew, John, and Jacob Dick. The brothers were born in Germany, Matthew in 1819, John in 1827, and Jacob in 1834. In 1852, the brothers decided to leave the vineyard and winery of their father in Germany and came to the United States to settle in Belleville, Illinois for 4 years. Originally, Matthew was a cooper, John a baker, and the young Jacob a salesman for a hardware store. Matthew saved his money and was able to invest in a saloon for a few years, but eventually the brothers grew dissatisfied with the opportunities in Belleville and began to look elsewhere. The three brothers were on their way to Iowa to establish a brewery, but stopped in the thriving town of Quincy. They liked what they saw, so they moved to Quincy and began the brewery there. Operations began on a small scale and were mainly concentrated on the south side of York during the beginning, but because Jacob was fluent in English, he acted as a bookkeeper and manager for the business. The other two handles the more mechanical aspects of the business. The firm grew and began a side business, the milling and grain business, known as the Dick Brothers Milling Company. The brewing company's name was changed in 1869 to Dick Brothers Quincy Brewing Company, and in 1888 it was a thriving success. They had branches in all large northern and western cities, employed a small army of men, and brought thousands of dollars into Quincy every year. The first brew house was built in 1897 and housed the large brew kettles. In 1903, it exploded at 4:30 a.m. when a 300-barrel rice cooker on the third floor blew up. All the expensive machinery on the third floor, the 20-inch concrete floor, the iron girders, and the bricks fell onto the copper kettle, destroying it. The ice house was built in 1914. Other additional buildings include a stockhouse, racking house, malt house, boiler house, and bottling house. They also built 3 extensive brick vaulted ceiling cellars for storing beer underneath the buildings. These tunnels stretch from 910 York under the street to form 3 long storage cellars which held 24 barrels per tunnel for a total of 72 barrels, each holding 750 gallons of beer. The original floors were dirt and cobblestone. All beer was brewed in the winter and stored in the cellars for summer sale. However, in later years, the development of refrigeration allowed brewing to become a year-round business, and the old caverns were abandoned. The Dick Brothers Brewery had its own saloon that was located in the cellar of the brew house and was the place for many great parties. Visitors or locals could patronize this saloon and get free beer if they were able to come up with brass coins engraved with DBBC. These coins were distributed by Dick's employees and others. The three brothers had founded one of the largest breweries in the United States, and in the early part of the 20th century, Dick Brothers Brewery was once larger than Anheuser-Busch in St. Louis, Missouri. When the Dick brothers built their original brewery, it had an annual capacity of about 1,500 barrels of lager beer. Within the next 15 years, it would produce about 70,000 barrels. It employed 18 workers in the winter, 10 during the summer during the early years. It was Quincy's longest operating brewery until the Volstead Act of 1918 that prohibited the sale of alcoholic beverages. The company tried the manufacturing of near beer, but it was unsuccessful. Prohibition and finally the effects of World War II caused the brewery to be auctioned off under bankruptcy in 1951. The assets were liquidated, and the final report was submitted in 1953. This Historic Quincy Business District podcast was produced by WGEM. Special thanks to the Gardner-Denver Museum of Architecture and Design, the Historical Society of Quincy and Adams County, and Quincy Preserves for providing information. For more information, you can visit www.downtownquincy.com or walk to the HQBD office at 128 North 5th Street. I'm WGEM's Rich Kane.